Hello viewers, we're back again with the Hunter 33201 humidifier. This is an evaporative humidifier and the fan motor is just about completely locked up. The bearings are very dry and barely operational. So we need to see if we can dismantle this and get the bearings lubricated. Otherwise this machine is just not going to be useful. A lot of these screws are rusted out beyond removal. This one is very bad over here, but it's still, there's still enough of the head left to take it out. This one is just gone. So we're starting off already with a challenge. Let's try a different tool. I'm not even sure I'd be able to turn this head without the whole plastic stud just cracking. The plastic is very brittle on this because moisture deteriorates plastic. So for really any humidifier to be made out of plastic is kind of ridiculous, but that's exactly what they're all made out of. Yeah, this isn't turning at all. I bet it's rusted all down inside. Well, this seems to have let go without too much damage, so I guess we got the result that we needed. I have no idea how one of these comes apart. I've never worked on it before, so if you're here to learn how, you're going to have to be patient and learn with me as opposed to just raging and leaving rude comments because I don't know everything before I started filming. Yeah, these screws are in really bad shape. Most of these should probably be replaced. Oh, it's got one of these things on it. Don't like those. Sometimes you can get these off and then get them back on. Sometimes not. This one looks like it might go back on fairly easily. Wow, that's really tight on there. Just going to slowly work that up the shaft. Alright, that's totally stuck. And you have to keep in mind that this is probably very brittle, just like the rest of it. So we have to exert the force very strategically and evenly. It's going to be hard to use a puller on this because I don't think we're going to get the puller legs in there. Well, I expected this to be quite a challenge, so this is not catching me by any surprise, but it's nonetheless a problem still. Oh, it's not budging. Well, I guess we'll start with trying the puller. I don't think it's going to fit, but there's really only one good way to find out. Grab the smallest one I have, which might actually be physically too small for the blade here. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with the next size up. This is just a little bit too small. No, I think that's on there. I think this might be usable. It's barely working, but This is one of so many times I wish I had more than two hands. It's just impossible to get it to stay in place because I can't get it, it's not centered. This might not be doable because I can't get it even because of the way this is. If this was not inside this housing, I could probably do this without too much trouble, but it's in the housing. I don't think I'm going to be able to use the puller. I can't get it to grab all three spots. If I can't use this puller, I don't know what I'm going to do. Yeah, I just can't. I can't get it to grab all three spots because of the housing it's in. Yeah, this is just physically impossible to do. Oh boy, this is not good. This is not the part I expected to have a problem at either. I knew this was going to be difficult, but this is not the part I expected to get stuck at. This is not even budging. I don't know. I don't know what we're going to do. Well, I guess we're going to start by doing that. That maybe broke the initial seal in there and got it down the shaft a little bit. Okay, there we go. Very interesting. Okay. No. That screw is almost completely gone. Got it. Okay, so now the most difficult part is going to be getting this impeller off, because a lot of times, from what I've seen, these impellers don't come off. They're just like really jammed, press fit on there, and there's no good way to get them off. But we're going to try it, see if we can get it. Wow, this is so, the plastic is so deteriorated from the moisture exposure. Come on. This plastic is so brittle yet so stubborn at the same time. Okay, there we go. So now this is the problem. Here's the impeller, and there's no way to get it off. Because you can't really get behind here at all. Can't get in front of it. I'm going to try to turn it loose. So I'm going to hold the shaft on this top here, which is going to create a different problem later on, and I'll just try to turn it. Huh. This does turn freely. I might be able to get this off of there without too much difficulty. Well, I might also then, if I can successfully do this, I might have to revisit the 1128 upstairs. I tried to fix it once a couple years ago and I was not successful, but I have a better skill set now than I did then, so quite possibly maybe I could fix it now, I don't know. Well, let's get through this one first. So the challenge now is I want to turn it on the shaft while pulling it, but the only way I can do that is by grabbing it here, which is ultimately pushing it onto the shaft again, making that section tighter on the shaft. No, wait a minute, hold on. It's not spinning on the shaft. There's got to be some additional linkage, because this is spinning but the shaft up on the top is not, and that shaft is a different size. So this must maybe this is very simple. Maybe the motor comes out and there's some kind of a gearbox or something in there. That would be very interesting if that's the case. That was not good. Huh. Oh, look at that. That's something. That's exactly what it felt like. There's a rubber linkage in there. And so that was allowed to slip on the shaft while I was turning it, but holding it on the top. Okay. So now we can service the motor. This motor's going to need some serious help. It's very corroded. Bearings are very dry. But there's no play in the bearings. It seems like it's still in generally good shape. I'd like to just take this whole apparatus out of here so we can clean all this easily. Make sure I get a good picture of how this goes. Okay, that's good. Okay, so now I think we should be able to disconnect the switch. Alright, you know, that's the second time that this has fallen, and this thing never falls. I think that we should be able to disconnect the switch now. And write down where all the wires go. Whenever you take something apart, you should always make a diagram. Especially when it's something like this where there's no schematic and no other unit to reference. Where's my dang clipboard? Here it is. Okay, so this is labeled L. 1, 2, 3. 3 is yellow. 2 is black. One is green. And then L is the line that should be the high side. Okay, so now I have my diagram so I can put this back together when we're done. See if I can get these wires out of this switch here. I don't often have the best results doing this, but in practice what you're supposed to do is insert a very thin piece of metal in there and bend the contact down, and then you're supposed to be able to pull the wire out like that. That seemed to go pretty well. Okay, that was pretty easy. And then the cord, the common appears to be black. Sometimes, and this is a total hit or miss, sometimes you can decrimp these things and then put them back on. Looks like this is not fixing to be one of those times. So we'll just have to add a wire nut here afterwards. And we'll know that that goes to the cut side of the cord. So now we'll take this out of here. And oh, this is still attached here. Alright, so now we can do something about all these parts to get this cleaned up. It's pretty bad in there. I think all these parts are just gonna take a trip through the dishwasher. These are pretty gross in there. I can't get this off. Yeah, there we go. I'll try to scrub this down a little bit before I put it in there, but I think all this is gonna just go in the dishwasher. scale in there. Okay, I've got the parts in the dishwasher. They're cleaning. Now we got to get the motor taken care of. We have to sand the shaft down because that's very dirty and corroded. So we know from the wiring diagram that black, yellow, and green are the speeds. Hold on, let me make sure that's correct. This was number 2. Yeah, so this is going to be the common. The black wire is going to be the common. So we're going to hook this up to power and get this cleaned up. Yellow was number 3. I imagine that's high, so we'll go with that. Okay, good. It is strong enough to spin up still. So we're gonna start with pretty coarse grit. Seems to be coming off pretty easy. Alright, can we get this off now? I'm guessing this is for moisture protection. It's still pretty soft and pliable, so we can put that back on and reuse it. Nothing wrong with that. And I want to sand this down a fair bit at the end here so that blade doesn't press on there so tight. This motor is sounding really nice. Even though the bearings are very dry and stiff, it's not rattling at all. Although I still think the use of these types of motors is ridiculous, this one definitely appears to be of good quality build. Okay, let's get this taken apart. Making a total mess here on the bench. It don't matter now, I should have put the cloth down to start with, or one of those bags. It looks like there's supposed to be a watertight seal right here, but it's coming out of place. It looks like a decent amount of oil wicking in there. That doesn't actually seem very dry. It must be the front that's the problem. The front doesn't seem very dry either. Well, we'll get it all cleaned up. And take off this array of washers here. Stick those there for now. There is some gummed up oil on the front here that we want to clean out, so we'll polish this. I guess we'll polish both ends while we're at it. Does this come off? Yes, it does. We're going to do this portion in the garage. I think it just made more sense because it's a lot easier to just carry this outside versus to bring this whole machine and the stuff that we need into the house. I like to put a piece of paper to protect the shaft from getting chewed up by the drill chuck. We're going to use Simichrome polish to clean the surface areas of where the shaft sits on the bearing. It's dirtier than it looked. I think we're going to do a second round. That was a little too much. That'll work much better now. Okay, now we're going to clean the bearings out. We'll clean these thrust washers here. There's 3 of them. We'll try to preserve the order. You know what? These are coming out pretty much perfectly clean already. There's actually 4 of them. And these aren't sticky or dirty at all. I think I'm just going to leave those be. There's that little washer there, that rubber gasket. I imagine that's there for watertighting purposes. Yeah, this front bearing is kind of dodgy in there. I might have to clean this out with some isopropyl alcohol. I think the front was probably where the issue was. I wonder if that isopropyl is going to tip over and spill. Would not surprise me in the slightest. Well, it's better than it was. I don't really have a good means at this time of polishing the inside of the bearing surface, though I suppose that would be a valuable thing to get. Alright, so let's relubricate and reassemble the motor. We're going to put the oil in between the bearing and the holder where that felt material is, that wicking material, and that will hold oil and disperse it as needed into the bearing. These bearings are sintered bearings. There is a bunch of microscopic holes in the bearing surface, and the oil will seep through those pores during operation, with thermal cycles and so forth. So I'll put a good amount of oil in there. Let that really soak in. I don't like this appearance of the outside of this here. It's not in the bearing, so it doesn't really matter, but it looks like just dried up old oil in there. I think it's actually going to take a little bit more than that. Probably hasn't been lubricated in over 20 years, so it's going to take a fair bit, I guess. It's a much better surface for the bearings to interact with, nice and clean now. This should run a lot better. Alright, so this is the front bearing, and now there's too much oil in there, go figure. but there's not enough in the back, so we'll just transfer it from the front to the back. This way it doesn't go to waste. I'll get any of the excess out of here so it doesn't drip all over the place during reassembly or operation, because that's not helpful. Don't want to humidify the house with oil-filled water. Put a little bit of oil in here to start, inside the bearing itself. And I'll put a little bit of oil on the shaft as well, so it's got something to give it a separation in there as it passes through initially. Much better. Should have cleaned that junk out of there, whatever that is. Oh, I forgot the thrust washers. That would be helpful. Try to push that seal back in there if we can. I wonder if that's actually supposed to go in there or not. I don't know. It's hard to tell. It was half and half when I got it. That seems like that would make sense right there. But that's creating a lot of friction, so I don't think I want it like that. I think I'm going to just leave it on the outside and put it up close against the shaft, or against the bearing rather. Look, it's not helping us to have that there. Let's put a drop of oil in here while we're at it. Okay, so try to torque these down evenly. Click, click. And we might find that the shaft is kind of stiff. So we're just going to whack it with a screwdriver a couple times. And it'll line right up. These are self-aligning bearings. I don't know about that little washer thing on the back. It's a little weird. It definitely was creating a friction in there. I wonder if it's supposed to just sit like that and it's just stretched out over the years. I don't know. I really can't tell. The motor's running nice now. I think I'm just going to leave it on the outside. Okay, motor's in really good shape now. Just for thoroughness, I'll put a drop of oil in the front here again. And one in the back. Try to get in between that gasket thing there. Doesn't get much better than that. That is ideal. Super nice, gliding real free. Okay, so I also go to the cleaning area and take care of the one piece I didn't put in the dishwasher. Here's the outside of the unit. Probably should use the water more conservatively since the pump is breaking. And the melamine foam is making easy work of this as usual. But there is a lot of little cracks and crevices here, which is kind of a nuisance. Look at that, the water beads up on the plastic like it's brand new. Alright, I'm pretty content with that. Just remember, through all this, it's carefree. Carefree. Okay. Seems to be requiring an awful lot of care right now. The tank, I think we will put a little bleach in there and rinse it out with bleach on the inside. I don't know what else to really do with that. Can't get in there to clean it because the stinking opening is so small. And the bleach is going to keep coming out because there's a hole in the tank. That's a pretty strong concentration in there right now. This is what I normally would do with the 1128. I think this is the best way to clean it. This is really kind of grungy in here. I don't know what's up with that. Surprised this part in particular is so deteriorated. I don't know why that would be. It's not like this is exposed to heat or something. It's kind of strange. If the video drops out, it's just because the battery died. We're teetering on the end of the battery life here. good enough with this. Rinse this out now and then wash it down with the melamine foam on the outside. I'll have to figure out what to do with that hole. I'm wondering if I can fix it with hot glue. I like to fix everything with hot glue. That dang pump is working right now. I don't want bleach all over the floor. I don't know. Yeah, I suppose I just heard it. Man, it's such a shame this broke. I think I'm going to really like this little unit. Duh, that's on the outside. Having a lot of stupid moments today. Well, as they say, sometimes smart people do stupid things. Goes on much better now. All that crud is cleaned out of there. Good, okay. So I think now we gotta do something about this. I wonder if I could fix it with, I'm not sure what would look less worse. A blob of hot glue or some tape. Like clear packaging tape, I think would probably fix it. Maybe I'll try the tape first, because if that doesn't look right or that just doesn't work, then that's a little bit easier to undo than the glue. I don't know why that looks like that still. I guess that's just the way it is. Okay, all the parts have been cleaned. Everything cleaned up very nicely in the dishwasher. Looks like new now, other than the yellowing. So, very good. Quite happy with that. So now we get to try to put this puzzle back together. I guess we'll begin here with the motor assembly. That's working much better than it was before. It's working quite poorly before. So this is going to slip into here, and it's going to connect to that. It slips onto there. That's what drives the pump. So that's kind of a neat way to make this serviceable. And I really hope that the Lasco 1128 upstairs has a similar design. Yeah, that's pretty clever. Alright, so now we're going to screw this back in place. I can't see where the holes are for where this is supposed to sit in here. Oh, I got it. No, we got a problem here. This has become locked solid. Something is definitely not aligned properly here. It is connected, but it's not spinning freely. So there is a problem. Wonder what that problem is. And now it's spinning freely. So what becomes the problem? It seems to lock up as soon as this goes back, which is a problem because that's how it would naturally sit. And it's going to sit like this when it's inside the machine and it's almost locked up. Alright, we're going to have to take this back off and study this apparatus a little further here. Oh, and for those that were wondering, this is a super motor, model SP128QD-1FA. I have seen that brand before on cheap desk fans, so I'm surprised that this motor is built to the caliper that it is. Alright, so why does this want to lock up? It seems pretty happy right now to move just about anywhere. So what changes? It almost seems like it's running out of room to push down. It's like there needs to be a couple of washers on the other side or something to hold the motor up. Well, that's an easy enough thing to put in place if that's what we need to do. I don't understand what has changed, but at the end of the day, it's a 25, 30-year-old apparatus. It just doesn't want to be messed with anymore, so sometimes you run into anomalies like this. Yeah, I think if I could secure it in place just a little bit higher up, we might be okay. So I think what I'll do is I'll just get a handful of washers to put maybe just put 2 or 3 washers and see if that makes a difference. I'm going to try these 4 washers and see if that makes a difference. think that should give us enough space to solve the problem. Whatever the problem is, I don't know, but well, that definitely made it better, but it's still not 100%. Let's give it a quick test run. See, we have to consider that it's going to sit flat like this, and that might be good enough. It's running generally freely. Not as good as it was before, but certainly enough to operate. Oh, something is definitely a little bit wonky with this, and I just don't know what it is. Yeah, it just feels like something is scraping. Some part of that linkage is just not aligning properly. Oh, I just fixed it. It was a little bit loose. I just kind of pushed it up in there. You see, I feel like this is... it shouldn't have that play. Let's put this on and see if that's a problem. That might be a non-issue. Oh, it does move some air. That's kind of cool. It's like a little vacuum. It's generally working pretty good. Yeah, I think we're going to go with that. I think that's correct. Okay, so now we got to keep going with this puzzle here. How the heck do we put this thing back together? So this what's all that noise? So these wires I think go through here like this. And what the heck is stopping them from going through a hole? I have no idea. Looks like a clear shot through to me. Heck, don't it go through? That is ridiculous. Every single wire is stuck. What on earth? Well, I didn't foresee this being the most difficult part of the reassembly. Good grief. Okay. I think that's our general idea. This is not quite aligning as nicely as it needs to in order to close. I hate to put these rusty screws back in, but I don't think I have good comparable replacements on hand. And they're only going into plastic. It's not like it's going to cause any kind of damage anywhere. If this was a metal appliance, I would not put these back in. And that one doesn't go there. Where's that rubber piece? This one on there. I guess to prevent any water from getting into the bearing area. And over there like that. that, and then this went on over it. Whatever that does, I have no idea. And then this is not really. I hate when that happens, and it happens all the time too. Just gonna get a new one at that rate. It ain't worth the time of day. It wasn't working anyways. I always keep these on hand now. Okay. Now this goes on here, I think, like that. And then this went over this. Surprisingly, these clips still work, although I don't know how many more times they're going to work. They worked this time. And this might need to, oh, I think I can get it. There we go. Make sure that's still spinning freely. Seems to be. That doesn't belong in there. Okay. Now, I think that we can put the switch back together at this point. Feed the cord through. Alright, so this is where we need our diagram. So we know that this was our line in, so this should be the high side of the plug. Yes, it is. So this is the line. That went in there pretty nicely. And then one is green, just this one here. Two is black, which was this. and 3 was yellow, which is this. And these 3 wires need to go back together. I think I tried to uncrimp this before and was not successful. I don't remember, so I'll try again. Nope. This is probably 20 gauge wire, very small. And then these 3 wires need to go together as well. Gee, I didn't leave a lot of slack here. That wasn't too good. Okay, 2 extra wire connectors. So this should be the electrical copacetic now. Let's check it. So this should be low, medium, and high. And we do have a neon indicator here, which is pretty cool. Okay, that is working properly. Now to fit it back in place. I think that this was kind of like this. And this is a 50-50 of getting this right. Kind of feels like it fits naturally that way. Let's see if we can get a... So we want this to go like that. So it has to sit in there like that. That's kind of what the wires were feeling like. Okay, we gotta make sure we don't put any screws through any wires as we reassemble. This is kind of a close call on some of those wires there. I did not do the best job of keeping track of what screws are which, but I think it's going to be these four for this switch. Seems to go in properly. Okay, that's all back together. Now let's get the top back onto this. I think we're at that point now. Alright, something is not quite right up here. It's got to sit in there pretty deep. There we go, now that's correct. Alright, so we need a lot of screws. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 screws for that. I think one of these screws is too rusty to put back in. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I've got these 5 are the same here, so this must be it. So this top part here lines up first. This has to really sit down in there for everything to line up correctly. There's your 5 screws. And we're just about done now. That went together a lot more easily than I was expecting. Okay, this is interesting. I think we maybe have to do something in a different order here, because this has to get on top of that piece. I don't see that happening with this attached. Sounded awful, but it seems to have gotten us closer at least. I wonder what the correct way to do that is. I don't think that was the correct way. Okay, that all looks lined up pretty good now. Put these rusty screws back in place. Alright, so we still need to wait for our filters to come in. I did end up ordering some new ones because I looked up the specs of them, and they are in fact supposed to be metal, so the ones I have on hand are just not correct at all. So those will come in a couple of days. So this is not useful until then, but when those filters come in, it'll be useful. Whoops. I just spilled water. Well, fortunately it's so dry down here it'll probably evaporate in just a couple minutes. Okay, let's check the operation now. Ah yes, much better. Much better than before. That outputs quite a strong amount of air. I'm surprised this is only a 2 gallon. It really seems like it would have been more than that. This is really quite powerful. The stupid thing is still pretty stiff, but I think that's because of the shaft to the pump. It's better, but it's still not great. But that might just be what it is. So now the last thing we got to deal with is this. So I think what I'm going to try, and this may or may not work, I'm going to try just to put some tape over it, because it only has to hold for very brief periods of time while the tank is being handled. And when this thing is sitting in the unit, it doesn't have to hold any water. So this might be adequate, I don't know. We're having a tape freak show here. I hate when this happens. That's so stupid. Why does tape do that? Trying to think of what the best way to put this on is. Where are those scissors? Here they are. These scissors work pretty good. trying to make this as least obvious as possible. So I don't want to use any excess tape. And I'm sure we're going to have people say, oh, that'll never hold, that's not going to work. Well, it might not, but it also might. I think that has very good chance of working. Let's test it out. Oh man, look at that. It works. It's already held for realistically longer than it would ever need to. It is bubbling up slightly right there and right there, but if that's all it does, like I said, it only really needs to hold for 15 or 20 seconds. Because during operation it's going to be like this. It's not going to be a problem. So I'm going to call that fixed. Oh, now that thing's working great.